Last Minute Fantasy Scramble starts in 10,
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome to the Last Minute Fantasy Scramble. My name is Kevin McCartney. Alongside me today are Bobby Digital Janis and John Viveros. And we had some great games right off the bat. 2 Monday Night Football games. So we're going to hop right into those. Bobby, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Another week of football. Let's hope the season keeps going, man. I'm loving it.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to take a look first at that Patriots-Chiefs game. Obviously, it was delayed. Cam Newton was diagnosed with COVID-19. Hoping the best for his recovery. But want to take a look at that game between the Patriots and the Chiefs. And Bobby, specifically, I want to hear your takeaway from the Patriots side of things.
Yeah, I mean, coming into this weekend, with Cam Newton's last-minute coronavirus positive test, it kind of threw a wrench in their plans because they had Newton and they were game planning all week, and then last minute he gets tested positive, and then we don't know if the game's going to go on or whatnot. So that right there, the Patriots were at a significant disadvantage, but Belichick is obviously, if not the best coach right now in the NFL, definitely up there. And, I thought their game plan was pretty solid coming in, considering that they held the Chiefs without a touchdown until the third quarter. I mean, they controlled the ball. They ran the ball a lot. It was a lot of dink and dunk on offense. They kept Mahomes and company off the field. And they do have strength in that running game. We saw Damian Harris come back from IR, and he's a guy that they were really high on. He had 17 carries for 100 yards. They threw James White, who was back in the fold. Rex Burkhead got some carries. And so they kind of dink and dunk their way down the field, and they kind of tried to keep Kansas City off, and it was working. I mean, Brian Hoyer obviously got the start. He's not very good, and we saw that he brought them down to the red zone twice, and once he had I believe it was a fumble, and the Chiefs recovered down there, and then towards the end of the half, he took a sack. He thought he had a timeout. They didn't. No more timeouts, and that was the end of the half, so they missed opportunities there. But considering what they were up against, it was somewhat of an impressive performance. I mean, obviously, you can't hold Kansas City down for too much longer because they ended up running away with it end of the third and the rest of the fourth quarter. But fantasy-wise, Damian Harris is definitely someone to keep an eye on. They were very high on him in camp. Sony Michel's on that 3-week IR now, so Harris might get some run. But that backfield, keep in mind, is still crowded, and especially when Cam Newton comes back, that might take away some of the rushing volume. Edelman had a very unimpressive night. He had a drop. He missed. He had an incompletion. He couldn't catch the ball, and that's how it fell into Tyrann Mathieu's hands. He had a pick six, but Edelman might be still a guy you could roll out there as a wide receiver 3 in PPR leagues. Overall, I think it wasn't a bad performance by the Patriots considering what they were up against and considering how good of a team Kansas City is.
Yeah, absolutely. And you take a look at that Kansas City offense, obviously, and one of the most powerful and dominant ones that you've seen so far this year, and stretching back the last few years ever since Patrick Mahomes took the helm over there. And they really seem to be slowed down by that Patriots defense, especially in that first half. I looked at the score and it was like, there's no way that a Chiefs game has been that low in a while. So actually, John, I want to ask you about that Chiefs team and what you've seen so far from them this season, and specifically from this game against the Patriots.
Yeah, the Chiefs, I mean, obviously, like a well-oiled machine. Like Bobby said, you can't keep them down for too long. The main thing I noticed was mainly that the New England defense, even how decimated they are, they're still a good team. They're still a very very disciplined defense. They had Mahomes in third and longs, which is definitely what you want to do against the Chiefs. Make him make a very big play, not just like an intermediate size play. And that definitely he struggled a little bit there. Only had 236 yards, but again, still 2 touchdowns. Protected the ball. Outside of that really bad Sammy Watkins fumble in the I believe it was the second quarter. Chiefs played a pretty clean game. Only the main thing of concern, though, is still going to be CEH. Clyde Edwards-Helaire just hasn't been able to find the end zone since that first game. But again, he's running well, though. 16 carries for 64 yards, and he had a couple receptions for 27 yards as well. But overall, I think that just like you said, can't keep the Chiefs down for too long. Just a very good offense. Eventually, they do find their way into the end zone. They don't get rid of the ball. That's one thing they do. They protect it really well.
Yeah, for sure. And we do have 2 games that were played last night. The other game was between the Falcons and the Packers. Another one that we thought going in would be just a high-scoring affair on both sides. Bobby, the Falcons, what's going on with them?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, they had a lot of injuries, especially on defense. They had some more guys go out last night, and their defense wasn't very good coming in. Their first-round draft pick, cornerback A.J. Terrell, has been on the COVID-19 reserve list. And, Julio and Ridley, Julio did, congratulations to him, by the way. He's one of my favorite players. He broke the all-time reception. He's now the all-time reception leader in Falcons history. On a night where he became that, he also kind of re-aggravated that hamstring, and he went to the locker room and he never came back. And Calvin Ridley, I mean, as we saw, he's been a stud. He's been the number one fantasy wide receiver through 3 weeks. He was battling some ankle issues, and I watched that game closely. He did not look 100% out there, but the offense and the whole team in general, I think it goes up to the coaching, man. Dan Quinn's been there a while now, and I really think that a big reason why the Falcons were even made the Super Bowl, I think they were carried a lot by Kyle Shanahan when he was there. That guy's a brilliant offensive mind, and when he left, things started to go more downhill, and I think that kind of exposed Dan Quinn a little bit. So I know Falcon fans, and I would agree with them. I think it's time for them to fire Dan Quinn. It just came out flat. They're wasting Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. They don't have a lot of years left. Overall, fantasy-wise, Matt Ryan without the touchdown. Todd Gurley had 2 touchdowns, but he just does not look like himself. He doesn't look explosive anymore. He looks like a plotter. The defense, of course, is not very good. And, hopefully for your Calvin Ridley owners, he comes back another week to get healthier and he starts performing again. Julio, you got to keep tabs on his status, but it doesn't look good for the next few weeks, I would say, with that hamstring. Matt Ryan, I think, will bounce back. He had almost 300 yards. Packers are, again, a tougher matchup as well. So overall, a flat performance definitely by the Falcons, and I think they need to get rid of their coach.
Absolutely. And you take a look at someone like a Todd Gurley, and I think that shows as much as anything that is such a next man up league as far as running backs are concerned. And this guy, he was just so good. Like when he was back in St. Louis, and you just see that drop off going from season to season as being one of the most dominant running backs in the league.
Yeah.
To being, this is a guy who might need to be concerned, might be limiting his touches, to now going to Atlanta and looking like a shell of his former self.
Yeah.
And he's not old either. This is just the lifespan of a current, modern NFL running back. And you feel that every time you get fresh rookies throwing new bodies into it, these guys are going to go really hot. They're going to run for a lot. And especially when you have these workhorse guys, it's hard to imagine how long they're going to stay at that top level. And to look at a guy like a Christian McCaffrey, who has been healthy his entire NFL career to this point, you wonder what his injury is going to be doing down the road. And it's just hard to look at it, even from a fantasy perspective, to look at the NFL these days and just say, this is a guy who I could depend on week in and week out to even stay healthy, let alone get enough carries to be that workhorse guy. Moving along, though, don't want to get too distracted. We still want to take a look at the Packers. So, John, the Packers put up a great performance. Aaron Rodgers and a few surprises along the way. Why don't you tell us about that, John?
Yeah, this was probably about as predictable and as how I would imagine a good Packers game to go. Aaron Rodgers, only 6 completions, 327 yards, and 4 touchdowns. No problem at all shredding this very decimated Atlanta defense. Aaron Jones, nice long touchdown reception as well. And he ran the rock pretty good, 4.7 yards per carry on 71 yards. But the two big ones to look at definitely were Jamal Williams. He was very, very active in the passing game. 8 receptions, 95 yards, and he almost had a couple touchdowns. Actually, he almost had one on a reception, and then another one at the goal line too. But the greatest story has to be Robert Tonyan, the tight end that no one is talking about. His 3rd straight game with a reception, 6 receptions on 6 targets for 98 yards and 3 touchdowns. Huge game. He's not rostered, and he's rostered in very, very, very few leagues. So if you need a tight end, he is definitely one to look at. He's definitely shown without Jamal Adams. Not Jamal Adams, sorry. Devonte Adams and Alan Lazard, that he's become a top target. So definitely someone to look out for. And this Green Bay team looks like they're going to keep rolling. The second year in the Matt LaFleur offense has shown to do wonders for them. And like last year, we weren't sure how good the Packers were. They were 13-3, but they were like, were they really 13-3? Now this is a very, very good 4-0 team, if not one of the best ones in the league.
Absolutely. And Aaron Rodgers is just taking a straight up resurgence this year. A lot of people started counting him out from a fantasy perspective, especially when this year in the draft he was looking for any kind of help, and all that they did was draft him a backup. So he was upset about that. He thought that there might be some issues going into this year, and even without Devonte Adams for half the games, like, this guy is balling out. And I do want to take a look at another player on that Green Bay Packers roster that a lot of people were really high on both of the last 2 weeks, and that's Marquez Valdez-Scantling. And, Bobby, what do you think about his performances the last couple of weeks, especially with Devonte Adams out? And you really feel that somebody would be able to fill that role, and a lot of people were thinking it was him. Like, what are your thoughts on him going forward as a fantasy player?
I mean, I would definitely still be rostering him because, a receiver in that offense that's seeing significant playing time is valuable. But Adams is going to – I mean, Adams, the report came out that if it were a playoff game, I mean, he would have played. The Packers were just being extra cautious because of the bye week. So Adams is going to be back and ready to go when they come back from their bye week in week 6. And, he's such a target hog. Obviously they use Aaron Jones in the passing game a lot. And even now John mentioning with them using Jamal Williams in the receiving game, they're kind of getting creative. They even had their other two running backs, Tyler Ervin and A.J. Dillon, out on the field too. They have an upcoming young receiver in Darius Shepard as well, and the emergence of Robert Tonyan. I'm not super excited about MVS going forward. Again, I'm still going to hold him. I'm still going to keep him. I'm not going to drop him. He's still too valuable to drop. Maybe he's good for wide receiver depth. Maybe if you're in a pinch, you start him. He's capable potentially, but it really hasn't been that impressive. I mean, last week against the Saints, only one catch for 5 yards. And then last night, being the quote-unquote number one wide receiver, only 4 for 45. He's shown flashes here and there throughout his career so far when he's given the opportunity, but he just really hasn't put it together, and I'm not like super excited about him moving forward. John, what do you think about MVS?
Yeah, I mean, like he was obviously my breakout player choice for the Monday night game. I thought with no Lazard, and I even thought with Devonte Adams was coming back, but with him out, I was like, oh, this is a lock. Like I'm 100% gonna win this. And he just hasn't done anything with the targets. Like against New Orleans, I don't think he didn't really see the targets. Only had one reception, but he saw 8 targets. He tied for the most targets on the team last night, in which it seemed like everyone was popping off, and he just doesn't seem to do anything with the targets. A couple drops, a couple of plays he just couldn't make. I don't know. Like I think he has to be rostered as long as there's injuries, because he's either the one or the two option. But I wouldn't feel comfortable starting him.
Yeah, and Devonte Adams, his injury just capped another weekend full of decimating injuries. And the two of the biggest ones that I want to take a look at today are between Nick Chubb and Austin Eckler, two of those top running backs who are really going to make a difference if your roster had one of those guys or even both of those guys. So I wanted to first take a look over at that Cleveland Browns situation. Now, there was a big workload split between Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in this year. Both of them have been putting up huge numbers so far this season. But without Nick Chubb, it makes you wonder, are there any other openings? Is this just going to be the Kareem Hunt show? Or do you think somebody else might get involved? Bobby, what are your take on that?
Yeah, first of all, the Cleveland Browns, and we talked about it the last time, when they brought in Kevin Stefanski, who was the offensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings the previous year, we saw what kind of offense they're going to run. I mean, Dalvin Cook was a star in that offense, and they're obviously a run-first team. We're going to use the play action, so they're going to limit Baker's passing attempts and go play action and look for Odell and Jarvis down the field, but it is going to be the Kareem Hunt show, and because they gave Kareem Hunt, we mentioned it, early on, that they gave him a significant contract, re-signed him in the offseason. Kareem Hunt's capable. We know in 2017, he was the NFL's leading rusher with that Kansas City offense. So he was already a big part of the game plan, even with Nick Chubb. And now Chubb being down for 6 weeks or so is what they're saying. I mean, they're going to feature Hunt. Now, last week, Dearness Johnson did see a significant workload as well. However, keep in mind that Kareem Hunt was going to be limited coming into this game, they said, because he was nursing a minor groin injury. So he's only going to get healthier. He came out of that game without any setbacks. I think Kareem Hunt's the man. However, I do also like Dearness Johnson, and he is somebody who the Browns were pretty high on as well when they drafted him. He looked good against Dallas, and I think he's going to get some run, but I don't think it's going to be a similar situation when Chubb and Hunt are in, where it's kind of like a 1A, 1B type situation. I think Hunt's going to garner most of the workload, but being as how run heavy that team is and how good that offensive line is, Dearness Johnson definitely has high upside as a handcuff, and he definitely has some flex standalone value in PPR leagues. But Hunt can do it all, and we've seen that. He can catch the ball. He was already their preferred go-to option when it came to the running backs in the receiving game. He was a great runner, and he's in a perfect situation. So I think it is going to be the Kareem Hunt show going forward. But, John, I want to hear your take on that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like Kareem Hunt is as long as he's healthy, will 100% I feel be the featured back. Definitely, he sees more look in the passing game as well. Johnson did he outrushed him 13 to I believe it was 10 for Hunt after Chubb went down. But Johnson ran really well though. I mean, 13 carries, 95 yards. So definitely something to look at. The Browns have shown that they don't mind using the two running back system. Not really a committee more so, but just like they do feature both backs. But Hunt definitely has more value in the passing game. This team I feel like will be very more matchup dependent as well. Last 2 weeks they played Washington and Dallas, two not very great defenses, so they were able to run the ball a little more. That's why we saw a good game from Chubb, good game from Johnson and Hunt as well. When they play against tougher, more competition, I think we'll see more Hunt. It'll be more game script dependent. So I think against like Indianapolis, Pittsburgh, the next 2 weeks, probably see more Hunt in the passing game. Will have more of his value, which is where he saw the majority of his value against Dallas as well. But I think Johnson is 100% worth the stash, especially
Yep.
if you're a Chubb or a Hunt owner. If not, maybe you could steal him and then try and make a trade out of it. But I was definitely very impressed with what I saw from him because it's really the first game action he saw. He didn't see any action in weeks 2 and weeks 3. So I was definitely very, very interested and very, very impressed.
And point being, this offense is, again, whoever is getting the running back touches, whether it's a one back or two backs like we've seen, is just extremely valuable because they are the run heaviest team in football. They do have one of the best offensive lines, and we see that that's clearly their philosophy. So it brings a ton of value in fantasy football.
Yep, 100% agree.
Absolutely, and there's not many teams that could support even one viable running back, let alone two. So the Browns are definitely someone you want to take a look at their running back situation every time. And another one of those teams is the Chargers. Now, even with Austin Eckler in, there were a lot of looks at some of the other running backs in that backfield as being potential fantasy choices. Now, with him out of the picture for the next few weeks, John, who else do you think is going to be stepping up big time in this situation?
I mean, obviously, Josh Kelly is who has been seeing the looks more so because Justin Jackson had been hurt. But I think, Kelly had a really bad fumble. I don't know if you guys were able to watch the game at all. It literally, the announcers were trying to say it was Herbert, but if you get a ball in your chest, you should be able to handle it. Again, but nothing against Josh Kelly. I love him. I think he's gonna be a great running back down the line. But Justin Jackson, when he's healthy, he shouldered the workload last year. At times, and I think that he'll probably be the one. I think that'll be more of a committee situation, and obviously they're not a great team either, so they'll be throwing more. So I wouldn't exactly buy into the situation. But if you need just someone, especially if you're an Austin Eckler owner, probably Justin Jackson is not a bad choice. But again, it's not a situation I'd actually be buying into at the moment.
Oh, you also take a look at that fumble, and that was off of the handoff, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Herbert literally, it was a little high, but at the end of the day, if someone hits you in the chest with a ball, you should be able to corral it. I think that was just more so a rookie not being able to adapt to the situation and just the speed of everything. Again, it's a rookie from a rookie also too. But like I said, I feel like Justin Jackson is the more sure-handed one of the two, with Eckler being out. What do you think, Bobby? What you got for me?
Yeah, I mean, I think with Anthony Lynn, he seems to be a stickler for when running backs fumble. And Justin Jackson was his first game back after IR. And like you mentioned, John, he's capable of shouldering the workload. I mean, we saw in a game in 2018, it was a Thursday night game at Kansas City. I mean, Jackson had 19 total touches, including a touchdown. He had 3 receptions as well. And they've kept him over the last 3 years. So he's definitely someone they view as valuable. I kind of really like Justin Jackson. I mean, Eckler, they said, he's out maybe 4 to 6 weeks and that they hope he can return sometime in the season, which kind of tells me that this maybe isn't even a lock that he returns during the season. So this could be something a long-term thing, maybe for the rest of the season as well. And I'm with you, John. I love Josh Kelly. I loved him coming out. And I know obviously the Chargers are high on him too. But I think Justin Jackson is definitely going to be involved, and especially in PPR leagues, he might even be the preferred pass catching back. And I think as long as Herbert remains the starter, that pass catching role as a running back can be pretty valuable, more so than when Tyrod Taylor's the quarterback. He tends not to check down nearly as much as Herbert would. So I am into Justin Jackson. I mean, again, I don't think he's a league winner or anything. I think, again, it's still going to be a committee. But in PPR leagues, man, I kind of like Justin Jackson as an RB3 flex type option with upside if something were to ever happen to Kelly. But again, when you're comparing situations with the Browns or the Chargers, obviously when it comes to the running backs and just maybe the team in general, obviously the Browns are the preferred backfield you'd want. But that's my take on that situation with the Chargers.
And there are plenty of running backs this week. Again, more injuries lead the way for more opportunities for some of these players. Bobby, what other players do you like as far as the running back position is concerned this week?
Yeah, well, this is something maybe a little more of a long-term pickup, but definitely something valuable. And I'm targeting as well is Chase Edmonds if he's available in your league. Kenyon Drake, obviously, I mean, we'll talk about him a little later on, but he hasn't looked good. He's not involved in the passing game, which is kind of beyond me. And then he did leave that game late in the fourth quarter with an apparent chest injury. But on Monday morning, they came out and said he was fine. He just got the wind knocked out of him, and he was full practice and full working out with the team. So he should be fine there. But we all know that if Drake something were to ever happen to Drake, that Chase Edmonds is going to be very valuable, and we've seen that last year. We've seen whoever is the starter in that Cliff Kingsbury Arizona Cardinals running back, or in that offense, whoever is that starting running back has immense value. Cliff obviously likes Chase Edmonds a lot, and he's done this before. David Johnson started out kind of slow, similar to how Kenyon Drake is, and then he just pulled the shenanigans, and that one game against the Giants, he started David Johnson. He had, I think, 1 or 2 snaps, 0 points, and then Edmonds came in, scored 3 touchdowns, and it might have been the Edmonds show had they not came in and signed Kenyon Drake or traded for Kenyon Drake midseason. So Edmonds is one of the highest upside handcuffs in the NFL or in fantasy football, and maybe they will turn away from Drake and go to Edmonds. I mean, who knows? He just has a lot of upside now, and he also, again, seems to be the preferred pass-catching back in Arizona. Kenyon Drake has barely even been used in the passing game, and he's capable. I'm not sure why, but Edmonds definitely is someone to keep track of, and me personally, I'm going to go after Edmonds where I can, especially since I'm a Drake owner.
Edmonds is probably the only one other than Jamal Williams, who I mentioned earlier. But again, Williams is on bye this week, so not really much to say about that. Definitely Edmonds, and then outside of that, there's really not much that I saw. Kashan Vaughn from Tampa was another one. He did have a touchdown, but again, it was really his first action against his first action this week against the Chargers. It really seems really thin. So I mean, like D'Ernest Johnson is probably D'Ernest Johnson and Chase Edmonds are probably the two that I'd be looking at.
Yeah.
In most leagues, but it just seems like the running backs are definitely not. It's not as deep as receiver. So you kind of just got to find one and just hope at this point. I feel at least.
Yeah, just another name that obviously, like John said, it's not not a lot of options, but another name maybe you want to keep an eye on is Duke Johnson as well. He did have 8 touches last week, and Bill O'Brien was fired yesterday, and David Johnson, I mean, he is 29 years old, and Duke Johnson has shown he's capable of at least, he's a good receiving back as well. He's a handcuff you might want to pick up. Maybe he might have some sort of standalone value going forward. Maybe they limit David Johnson as much. I don't know, but he might be another name to kind of look at. Nothing crazy, though.
Yeah, and that Houston offense could really be up in the air. You don't know what kind of changes are going to be every time that you have a new coach, a new scheme implemented.
Right.
Things could change. Like, you could see guys who were getting touches before end up being the main component. You could see other guys who are playing the ball a lot hardly be seen. It all depends whenever you get a new coaching situation, what's going to change. Obviously, things haven't been working right in Houston. Bill O'Brien has been in the hot seat for quite a while now, making a lot of questionable decisions, both as a coach and in his personnel decisions as well. So it's definitely going to be interesting with him out of the picture to see how that changes things. Now, I wanted to take a look at the wide receiver position. Obviously, there's a lot of great choices for waiver wire pickups this week. And, John, I wanted to start with you. What wide receivers do you like this week?
One that I don't know if I talked about him recently, but it's definitely going to be Scotty Miller. Last two games, he's performed really well. He had a couple long receptions against Denver. Last week, he had a touchdown, 5 receptions for 83 yards against the Chargers. He's definitely someone who has said that it's been said that he earned Tom Brady's trust, and he might be that Wes Welker role. Like, I mean, like, you never know. Like, he's just going to be just a reception monster in PPR. And again, he's in his last 2 weeks, he's performed really well. He even had a good first week too against New Orleans, which Brady really struggled. So he's definitely one that I'm definitely looking at if you need a receiver. Another one too that I will say, but this also does have a caveat, is gonna be Treycon Smith. I feel like we talk about Treycon Smith every year as someone who is like, eventually he's like, oh, he's finally gonna evolve into this number two receiver in this New Orleans offense. Um, but he finally he showed up a little bit. 4 receptions, 54 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But again, this does come with the caveat of, if Michael Thomas comes back this week, then Treycon Smith becomes the Treycon Smith that we know and love, with the 2 receptions for 10 yards. But he seems like he's finally actually doing something with the production that he's seeing, or yeah, with the targets, even behind Kamara, who's just receiving everything. Um, but what do you think, Bobby? What you got?
Yeah, I have two guys that I'm thinking about. I mean, we mentioned last week Cole Beasley. He's still out there in a lot of leagues. He's Josh Allen's security blanket. He's playing in one of the best offenses in the NFL so far. He had four, even though he only had 4 targets last week, he made them count, 3 for 32 and a touchdown, which was a really nice touchdown catch if you saw that game. And he did leave a little bit briefly in that game with a foot injury, but he's able to come back. So maybe that's why his targets were a little bit lower. But he's just been a rock solid PPR option, safe PPR option in a great offense. So he's definitely someone you could use as a bye week filler. He's out there in a lot of leagues. And the other guy, I think we may have touched on him again, is Al-Shaan Jeffrey. He was supposed to come back last week, suffered a little bit of a setback, and I'm not excited about it because he's just he's older now, and he's had a lot of foot issues, especially. But the Eagles, I mean, they're still decimated by injuries, and Jeffrey does have chemistry with Carson Wentz, so he's another guy you might want to maybe look at picking up. But again, I'm not super excited about Jeffrey, but him and Beasley might be some other guys if you're looking for wide receiver help.
Definitely some good options at the wide receiver position, but this week actually marks something interesting for tight ends, especially starting to go into the bye weeks where people may be out their specific tight end, and even ones to look for ahead of time for the rest of the season. John, I want to start with you. What tight ends? Actually, Bobby, we'll start with you this time. What tight ends do you like this week?
I mean, I think I mentioned in the last 2 weeks, if Dalton Schultz is still available, I think you might want to get him. He had, again, a solid performance, 4 for 71 and a touchdown. Um, he did leave that game with an injury, but just monitor his status. I mean, we see how much the Cowboys are throwing. It's ridiculous. I mean, Dak over 500 yards. You got Cooper and you got CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup, who's going to be commanding all that attention. Schultz is going to be that, and we know Dak likes the tight ends. He's going to be open. He's not going to see a lot of defensive attention, and we've seen that. They're always going to be in pass-heavy game scripts. We know that. Their defense isn't very good. They're going to be throwing the ball. So Schultz, again, he's been producing. I mean, if he's out there, I would go and get him. John, who's another tight end? Maybe if people scooped up Schultz, who's some other tight ends you're looking at?
So obviously the hot name is gonna be Robert Tonyan, who unfortunately is on bye week. So if you think might be able to get by with your current tight end, scoop up Tonyan 100% if you can, just because you'll definitely have him, and he's shown to be definitely a target that Aaron Rodgers has liked. But going to someone who's actually playing this week, someone who I don't hate, but I also don't love either. It's gonna be Austin Hooper. He finally like lived up to some of his potential that we thought was gonna happen in this Cleveland offense when they traded for him. 5 receptions, 34 yards, and a touchdown against Dallas. Uh, he on 7 targets too, so he definitely made the most out of his workload that he saw. Another interesting name is also going to be Alley Cox. Touchdown in 2 consecutive games. Only had 2 targets, so he really only had the 1 catch. But he seems kind of touchdown dependent. But hey, you gotta love the guys who just find a way to get to the end zone.
Yeah, for sure. And when touchdowns count so much for you, like, definitely it's good to have those guys who are going to be dependent, especially those targets when you get to the red zone. Now, I wanted to take a look as far as streaming quarterbacks are concerned and see if you'll like anybody this week or to have a pickup for stash for the rest of the season, John.
Yeah, definitely one name I'm looking at for specifically for this week is going to be Teddy Bridgewater.
Nice.
That Atlanta defense is 100% decimated. They even lost they lost a safety as well last night too. So it's just like they're just hurting. And Teddy's coming off a great game against Arizona, against a defense that was a lot of people have been kind of talking about, or just a team that people have been talking about. Teddy looked really good outside of the 1 interception. Nice 26-point bomb there. But again, like against Atlanta, we've seen what everyone has seems to do against Atlanta. That's just throw for a lot of yards and score some touchdowns. I do like Teddy Bridgewater. I like him probably the rest of the way through too, really much. I could see him developing into into definitely a definitive QB1. Decent enough schedule. Does have a later bye. Shouldn't affect your playoffs though, unless you start your playoffs super early for no reason, like week 13. But yeah, definitely Teddy Bridgewater. What do you think, Bobby?
Yeah, I love in the call on Bridgewater, especially maybe as a Cam Newton owner. I do have Newton in some leagues, and I added Bridgewater, and I'm rolling with him this week if Cam's still out. I'm loving that call. Besides Bridgewater, I mean, you could look at, if you're looking for someone maybe this week, you can look at Jimmy Garoppolo, who is expected to come back. Keep an eye on his injury status, but if he returns, they're at home against Miami. We saw how badly the Niners do need Garoppolo back. Mullins struggled against the Eagles on Sunday Night Football. Justin Herbert is out there in a lot of leagues. He's been impressive. He looks like he's going to be starting again last week with 23 points, fantasy points. And he does have some nice rushing ability. They do play the Saints, so keep an eye on their secondary. If they still have those injuries, you might want to consider Herbert. And another name, too, I mean, we did mention him last week as well. I'm not super excited about it, but Kirk Cousins, with the emergence of Justin Jefferson now, they are playing at Seattle next weekend. And we know that the Seahawks are going to put up points. Minnesota's secondary isn't very good, so it might favor a very pass-heavy game script. And if you get good Kirk, he can produce for you if you're in a pinch. But for me, and I think, John, you're agreeing with me, both the short-term pickup and then potentially the long-term pickup as well is definitely Teddy B. And it is good to see Teddy Bridgewater back healthy again. I mean, we know a few years back he suffered those devastating injuries, and it's good to see him back and producing. So, K-Mac, is there any QBs maybe that you're thinking about too?
No, I think all those guys are excellent picks. Again, Ryan Fitzpatrick, he was another one who actually, with a last-minute touchdown, actually ended up being able to save his performance. Now's the time I would say do not get too high on him because he is definitely due for a downturn anytime soon. Don't look at those good fantasy performances and think that this is going to be a long-term viable option. He might not even be starting in 2 weeks. So that's just something to take a look at. One guy who I have been talking about a lot the last couple of weeks, especially as a Dolphins fan, just got to warn you, be careful with that one.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a good week-to-week matchup if you look at it, but don't be surprised if he gets yanked out in the second quarter one of these days. Don't get surprised if he throws for 3 picks.
Yep,
so that
definitely.
being said, I want to move on to defenses. As we all know, having the right defense could make or break your team, could be the difference between a win or a loss. And so many of us here like to stream our defenses, big on the matchups, and see how they do week to week. Now, Bobby, I want to start with you. What's one defense you like specifically this week?
Yeah, and this is going to be, I'm going to target defense that most likely is on your waiver wire because there are some obvious choices here, but they might be owned. You know what? I've been going back and forth, but I'm going to go with the Browns defense at home against Indianapolis. The Colts have a great defense. I mean, and they're always, they're leading in pretty much every statistical defensive category. They've been looking great. But man, I watched that Colts and Bears game, the Browns are playing the Colts, just to let you know. And I've been watching that. I watched that Colts Bears game last weekend, and Phillip Rivers, man, they're a run first team, but when they're forced to throw, Phillip Rivers just looks flat. He looks old, man. we know he's capable of turning the ball over at times if you're getting him in those situations. So if you're looking for a streamer, maybe a streamer that especially might not lose you the week, I don't see the Colts putting up a ton of points, and the Browns do have a relatively solid defense, even though they gave up a lot of passing yards to Dallas last week, but they controlled the game. So I would go with the Browns defense if, the top options are gone. John, anybody under the radar that you're looking at?
I mean, the obvious choice this week is going to be the Cardinals. I mean, they're rostered in 52% of leagues. I think that's a lot of people that kind of look at the schedule beforehand and grab a defense 1 week early, so they're not in a mad rush to get a good matchup. Cardinals are playing the Jets at home, or they do have to fly across, but they looked a little vulnerable this week against Carolina, so definitely a buyer beware. I do think though this one is I do feel more confident. I feel more confident in the Cowboys defense against the Giants though. I think that the Giants are definitely that bounce back team, that get right team right now. Um, and then they showed they can't score. Like they scored 9 points against the Rams, so they're definitely struggling to score points regardless. The Jets I feel like will put up a better performance against Arizona. But I think the Cowboys could be, if you really need a streamer, you're really desperate. I think that's a better play than the Cardinals.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
just for the Cardinals defense too, keep an eye on Sam Darnold's injury status. He's questionable. He had some shoulder issues last game, and I don't know, John, if you know who their backup is, but if Darnold's out, I would definitely really like the Cardinals defense a lot more. Who is their backup, John?
It is actually Joe Flacco. He did see.
Oh, that's right.
He came in for he was active for the first time on Thursday night. He came in for a couple. He actually didn't look bad. I think in the 2 plays that he threw, yeah, it looked fine. It looked like his neck. I think it was neck surgery or back surgery, one or the other. Looks like it worked well. He's old at this point. He's 100% the backup. He's not going to take the job. So definitely good, one thing to look out for. Last I heard from Sam from one of his interviews, he says that they're just taking it day by day. He says he feels fine. So we'll so that's definitely one thing to look out for. I do agree with that though, that if Sam isn't playing, then the Cardinals do get bumped up a tier.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's a safe bet basically week to week, unless you're looking at one of those really bad defenses, that if you're playing against either of those New York teams, whether it be the Jets or the Giants, you have a pretty good matchup as far as the defenses are concerned. Now I want to take a look. I've gotten a lot of questions. I want to look specifically at 3 players. Today, we're going to focus on the NFC South. And I wanted to start with somebody that we all know and a lot of us hate. I was going to say I'll know and love, but I hate him. Hate him a little less now that he's with Tampa Bay. But
Agreed.
I imagine you as a Jets fan as well have seen plenty of this guy. Enough. He's ruined my childhood. I'm just going to say it right now. He's left some bad memories in my head that just...
Oh, it's the Jets' fault that he even became a starting quarterback. So I will live with this one for the rest of my life. I was watching that game live, and I was like, oh, sweet, awesome. Patriots are done, and they win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, for those who might not know who we're talking about at this point, that is Tom Brady. He had a tremendous game the last week, and he's starting to rise up a lot of people's boards. And just wondering how he's going to match up against some of these other more established players who may have been struggling over the last few weeks. So I'm going to go back and forth with you guys. John, I'm going to start with you. Who do you like better, Tom Brady or Matt Ryan?
Oh, yeah, give me Brady, 100%, not even close. And I'm a Matt Ryan owner in my keeper league too. Yeah, give me Brady, a better offense. And then at the end of the day, they both haven't looked great, but Brady has definitely strung together better performances. 3 games, 20 plus. That Carolina game, he really struggled in. But he's been throwing the ball well. I feel like Mike Evans, Scotty Miller, he's got a very good rapport with. He had a really good rapport too going with OJ Howard before he tore his Achilles, which is very unfortunate for him. But give me Brady.
All right, Bobby, Tom Brady or Ben Roethlisberger?
Yeah, this is easy for me too. I think it is Brady again. Roethlisberger's been solid since he's came back, but again, I think Brady isn't in the better offense. I think, and once they're only going to get healthier as the season goes on. They're going to get Godwin back, and Bruce Arians. I mean, that offense, they're still going to throw the ball, and they're going to be playing the Falcons and the Saints and the Panthers twice a year, which always is good for them as well. So yeah, give me Tom Brady as well.
All right, John. This next question is for you. Cam Newton or Tom Brady?
That's a fun one. I think you still go Brady in this one. Cam obviously being on the COVID list. That's a 2-week quarantine at least. Um, so I still take Brady here. I think that the thing that makes it difficult is because Cam does get those rushing touchdowns and those rushing yards. Brady has been known for his quarterback sneaks from the 1 yard line, but I still value him. I still value him more than Cam right now, especially like with Cam being on the COVID list.
I mean, Tom Brady, really, when are you going to start aging? When are you going to start aging? Showed signs some of the first few weeks, but come on, man. This guy, I'm not going to say it, but maybe he starts to need to take some of those PED tests, just saying. Well, you never know. Staying in the NFC South. Bobby, this question is for you. We're going to look at a backup running back who has been getting more and more touches and touchdowns lately, and that is Latavius Murray. And now, Bobby, I know you're high on this next guy, but I'm going to ask you, Latavius Murray or Jerick McKinnon?
Yeah, give me McKinnon, especially for if it's a PPR league, not even close because McKinnon is the preferred pass-catching back. Kyle Shanahan loves Jerick McKinnon. Last week, McKinnon came out and played over 90% of the snaps. You'd think it'd be more of a timeshare with him and Jeff Wilson. So, we know Mostert's going to be coming back, but McKinnon still was involved in the beginning of the year when Mostert was healthy, and now with his performances the last 2 weeks, he will be still involved, not nearly as much once Mostert comes back, though. But he does have a lot of high upside. Give me Jerick McKinnon. He's right now the 10th best fantasy running back in PPR leagues. Obviously, that's not going to be that high the rest of the year, but I like Jerick McKinnon. I think he has more standalone value. Murray right now is more reliant on more of a touchdown reliance at this point. Obviously, if something were to ever happen Kamara, we know it would happen with Latavius Murray, but yeah, I would side with McKinnon here. John, I actually want to hear your thoughts on that one real quick.
I 100% agree. McKinnon is like you said, like he's seeing a lot of snaps. Very, very, very valuable in the passing game. Same with Murray is very valuable in the passing game as well. Did have 4 he does see receptions as well. But again, like you got to take away those 2 touchdowns from this week, and he's had he's been very subpar. So Murray is very touchdown dependent unless Kamara goes down.
All right, John. Now I'm going to ask you, Latavius Murray or Myles Gaskin?
Oof, that's tough. I think I love Myles Gaskin, and that's hard for me to say because he's on the Dolphins. But I think you got to go with Murray here, just being in that better offense right now at least. It's close though. Gaskin's definitely struggled a little bit recently, but I do like Murray a little bit more.
All right, Bobby. We have Latavius Murray or Devin Singletary.
Yeah, give me Singletary. Zach Moss has been in and out with the injuries, but I think that he had a pretty nice game last week, and I think Singletary is still going to be involved. So give me Singletary. It's a little closer than I think to me it's close, but I'll side with Singletary here.
All right, now staying in the NFC South, moving on to Atlanta. This guy was a top wide receiver pick this year, but injuries are just keeping him off the field. And it's not Chris Godwin, but Julio Jones. John, I'm going to start with you. Amari Cooper or Julio Jones?
Amari Cooper, set and forget 100% of the time. I love Amari Cooper, always have. I loved him out of college, loved him in Oakland, loved him when he got traded to Dallas. I tried to trade for him the year he got traded to Dallas. I tried to trade for him like week or two before because I heard the rumblings, and I couldn't get him because the guy who had him, he's like, no, I want to see what he can do. I want to see what he can do. Then he absolutely blew up. I love Amari Cooper. Julio's had that struggle the last couple of seasons that he'll get a ton of yards and a ton of targets, but he won't get a touchdown. And we're definitely seeing it more that I don't want to say he's being phased out, but as he's been hurt more, he's definitely his target share has gone down. Calvin Ridley seeing a lot more recently, and definitely seeing more of the touchdowns. But I love Cooper, and especially I love that offense so much.
Yeah, that hamstring is clearly lingering, but you wonder once he gets healthy, like his potential, his ceiling is just about as high as any receiver there is. So, Bobby, I'm going to ask you, Julio Jones or Adam Thielen?
That's a close one, man. It really is. I still would go with Julio. Assuming when he gets back healthy, we don't know when that would be though. However, but when he's back in there and he's healthy, I mean, in week 1 when he was good to go, he had 157 yards, so a pretty big game there. I still think that he's a class above Adam Thielen. Thielen sees the end zone, he has chemistry with Cousins, but I'm still not fully sold on Kirk Cousins as well. So give me Julio.
All right, John, this last one is for you. Julio Jones or DK Metcalf?
Ooh. Why you gotta make me pick? You're making me pick between like the former best receiver to the best receiver in 3 years. I think just because of the injuries and just the way how the offenses are right now, I think you gotta go with Metcalf. Metcalf is a monster. Like he shouldn't be. Like for how big he is, he shouldn't be that fast. He shouldn't be able to catch like that. He's just an absolute monster. And I very well think he will be the best wide receiver in football in 2-3 years, and it won't even be close.
All right, yeah, he definitely is one of those physical specimens that you just see the way he plays, see the way he looks, and see the way he dominates the field. Once he starts getting into true form, he's going to be hard to stop. Now I want to take a look into some of your questions that we have. And Bobby, I'm going to start with you. Daniel asks, if A.J. Brown plays this week, do you start him or take a wait-and-see approach?
Well, that depends on who else you have on your roster, but most likely you maybe don't have as many better options because A.J. Brown was drafted in the 3rd or 4th rounds of fantasy this year, and if he's, if they're playing him, they obviously know he's ready and he's good enough to play. And I know it's a tough matchup against Pittsburgh still, but a lot of cases I don't think you'd have a choice to roll him out there. So I would start him. Temper expectations, but yeah, I would start him, especially with the bye weeks this week too, because I know the Lions and Packers. So especially if you have Galladay or Adams.
Absolutely. So now this next question is for you, John, and this comes from Brad, who asks, which receiver do you sit this week? CD, Chark, Anderson, or Ridley? Dak is the QB if it makes any difference.
Okay, so so it was CeeDee Lamb, Robbie Anderson,
DJ
Calvin
Chark or Calvin Ridley? Sit one.
Oof. I think you go. Chark had such a great week. It's really hard to say. I'm probably sitting Robbie Anderson this week. Just because like he's done great stuff, but out of those 3, like Ridley, even after I think Ridley has a very good bounce back week. Chark obviously had a good week coming back off that injury. And I'm just again like I'm still not. I don't. Yeah, like I said, and then obviously want the CeeDee Lamb stack. So I think Anderson is the hard sit, but it's close though. Like that guy's probably doing really good in his league with those receivers.
Yeah, that's definitely a good problem to have. I just want to take one moment to thank Calvin Ridley just for not getting any catches while it was up by only 1.5 points in my half-point PPR fantasy league. Thanks to you getting 0, I was able to remain undefeated. So moving on, Bobby, this next question is for you, and this is from Brandon, who asks, John Brown, Gallup, or Watkins?
Yeah, give me John Brown here. I just again loving that offense. He's the number 2 option. He should have had a touchdown last week again, but he got robbed in my opinion. I mean, the ball was over the plane when he was down. I thought it was a touchdown, but they said it wasn't. But Brown looks like he's healthier now. He looks like he's over that injury he was dealing with last week. Can't say no to John Brown. Michael Gallup's been it's crazy if you think all that passing volume and Michael Gallup, except for that long touchdown in week 3 against Seattle, it's been more Cooper, Lamb, and Schultz. So for right now, I don't trust him as much. I think Brown's the preferred option here.
Yeah, it's crazy to think in that high octane offense that out of all the people, Michael Gallup seems to be the odd man out. But yeah. I think that's still wait and see to see what goes on with that Dallas Cowboys situation. That's just one of those offenses that it's good to have anybody involved just because anybody could go off. Dak Prescott is throwing for 500 yards a week. It is insane to see what he's doing over there with that Dallas team. Whether or not that translates to winning is a different story, but there you go. So, this next question is for John from Jordan, who asks, keep Hollywood Brown or trade for either A.J. Brown or DJ Moore?
Ooh, I'm a big Hollywood Brown fan. I'm definitely keeping it. Those two options aren't bad options, obviously. A.J. Brown, you got to see what you're going to get out of him. DJ Moore, again, like he seems to be the second banana in that offense, and especially when they do get Christian McCaffrey back too, will be that'll definitely cut the passing game off a little bit too. But I'm still very high on Hollywood Brown. I think that Ravens team is they are one of the best teams in the league. So, and he's definitely a key catalyst in that.
All right, Bobby. Josh asks, start Jerick McKinnon or Ronald Jones?
Well, that all is going to depend on the each of their other running back teammates, respectively, and the health. Like if Leonard Fournette is, it depends on the health of Leonard Fournette, and also depends on the health of Raheem Mostert, and that's a tough one because it's a Thursday night game. From what it appears Mostert has a better chance of coming back than Fournette. So I guess I would go with Ronald Jones, but it's really tough, man, because you know what, I'm gonna especially if it's a PPR league, give me Jerick McKinnon because he's gonna at least get some passing down work, and he has the chance to actually have a featured role again if Mostert sits, and they're playing Miami Dolphins. I like that matchup better than the Bears, so gonna change course. Give me Jerick McKinnon over Jones.
All right, John Trevor asks, which wide receiver do you add? Tim Patrick, Laviska Shenault, or Keenan Cole?
I was really high on Keenan Cole a couple weeks ago. He's definitely tapered expectations. I like Patrick though. He showed me a lot against the Jets, and he got a ton of targets too. I don't remember the exact number. I'm trying to forget that game, to be completely honest. But Patrick definitely impressed me. Came out with 113 yards and a touchdown. So I think Tim Patrick has probably the longer term value, and that's a bad team, so they're definitely going to be losing and throwing a lot more. So I think we go Tim Patrick.
All right, Bobby, this next question is for you. Scott asks, I need one PPR. Drake, parentheses, bust, Gordon, Rojo, or Harris?
I'm still going to roll Drake out there. If he's healthy, roll him out there. Don't overthink it. I mean, I know he's been struggling. They are playing the Jets. Maybe Kingsbury looks at the film and they decide that maybe they got to start getting him out in space, throwing him the ball. As long as Drake's healthy, I would still go with him because I know he hasn't been doing well, and but I wouldn't want to be in that situation where I had to sit the week I sit Drake is when he finally has a good game, and the other options aren't super exciting for me. Give me Drake. Again, Melvin Gordon had a good week, but they're playing the Patriots, and if it wasn't for that long touchdown run, he wouldn't have done much at all. And I just think he's an average running back. I think he's overrated. I don't think he's that very, very good of a back, as well as Philip Lindsay's going to be coming back this week, most likely. So, give me Kenyon Drake here.
And speaking about Kenyon Drake, I know I had him as my breakout player of the week for this week. I thought he had a ton of potential, especially against that matchup where I thought that the Cardinals would be ahead of the Panthers for most of that game. But he just kept getting stuffed. He still ended up getting the touches up until he got injured. Got the ball a lot, but just was not doing anything with it. However, this week against the Jets, if it wasn't for last week, this week needs to be his week to step up and really take command of that offense. If not, he's going to start losing touches because you obviously see that they may not have all this faith in him. But that says to be said going forward. But enough about that. John, this next question is from you. Also, Scott asks, he is streaming QBs. He has Burrows and Tannehill. Should he drop one and get Cousins?
It was Burrow and Tannehill.
Yeah.
That's a tough call. Those two tough matchups this week. I think you definitely drop one. I think you look for Bridgewater though. Like I said, Teddy B. I would definitely stream someone. I would prefer the Cousins start than Burrow against Baltimore or Tannehill against Pittsburgh, or I'm sorry, against Buffalo. I would definitely prefer Cousins.
Would you drop? Would you choose Teddy Bridgewater over any of those guys?
This week, yeah, I like Bridgewater this week.
All right, good to know.
Agreed.
So, Bobby, this next question is for you, and this comes from D, who asks, from the tight end position, Evans or Alley Cox?
Evans. Who's Evans?
I don't know. I'm just reading the questions.
From the tight end position, Evans or Alley Cox? I don't know who Evans is. I mean, if it's Mike Evans, obviously you're going to start Mike Evans, but he's not in the tight end position. So I mean, I'm not excited about it. I know Alley Cox has gotten in the end zone the last few weeks, but I'm just not very high on this Colts passing game at all, especially Phillip Rivers. But I mean, I guess just give me Alley Cox here. I'm not sure who Evans is.
Yeah, I guess I thought that you might know some deep Evans that I didn't know about, but
I mean, I'm scrolling right now. I'm looking. I don't see anybody. Look, if somehow in your league Mike Evans is eligible as a tight end, I mean, then start Mike Evans. But
he's the best tight end in your league if he's
yeah.
if he's a tight end.
Yeah. Yeah, Alley Cox, man. I mean, just by default here.
All right. So, John, this next question is from Mina, who asks, would you pick up any of these receivers from waivers or keep Higgins? The options are Mike Williams, Scotty Miller, Djax, or Chenault.
Scotty Miller is someone who I'm very high on. I've had him, I dropped him, I'm going to pick him up again. Definitely give me a lot of Scotty Miller, especially with Godwin, being hurt. And definitely with O.J. Howard going down, so there's a lot more uncertainty in the tight end position. So I think he's going to fit right in as that Edelman option for Brady. I like a lot of Scotty Miller.
All right, so that about wraps it up for our questions for the day. And I just want to move to our last segment where we look over the breakout player of Thursday Night Football, where we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Chicago Bears. Now, just want to give a shout-out to Bud, whose prediction of Kenny Golladay was the best suggestion for our breakout players of the week, who for this first time were not very strong, but his option of Kenny Golladay was by far the best out of all of ours. So, I want to move into this week. Between this matchup, between the Buccaneers and the Bears, John, we will start with you. Who do you like for breakout player of the game?
I've mentioned him multiple times in multiple different segments, especially this past segment. Give me Scotty Miller. Only projected about 10.8 points, but he's seeing a lot more usage than that. So I'm all over Scotty Miller this week.
All right, Bobby, who is your pick for the breakout player of the game?
Well, I was gonna go with the Bucs defense, but I don't really want to pick it. I mean, I don't really want to pick a defense though. So you know what? I'm going to go under the radar here, and I forgot to mention him in the tight end segment, but I'm going to say Cameron Brate. Howard has the Achilles injury. He's out for the year. They're still down Godwin, and Rob Gronkowski kind of so far doesn't really look like himself, that old Gronk that we knew. Maybe he's starting to get Father Time starting to catch up with him. So, and especially since Cameron Brate is projected for so low on ESPN. Let me see real quick. Hold on. He's projected 6.3 in PPR leagues, so I like Brate maybe to find the end zone here and get some run now that Howard's done for the year. So I'll say Cameron Brate as my breakout player. K-Mac, what about you, man?
All right, so I am actually going to go on the Chicago Bears side and want to take a look at Anthony Miller. I think that he is going to be able to get his catches this week. He's going to go for a touchdown or two against that Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. Look out, Anthony Miller. He's coming. Only projected 7 points. He's going to get more than that. And that's about all I have on Anthony Miller. So, that being said, I had Anthony Miller. Bobby, you had?
Cameron Brate.
And John?
Scotty Miller.
All right, still waiting to hear our pick from Bud, who we're going to try to include for this one. So, we're all going to have our options and see how that goes. But take a look out for those three players. In the meantime, that about wraps it up for us today. We got this fun game Thursday night and good slate of games this weekend. Make sure to tune in Sunday as we go over our last-minute fantasy scramble. Take a look at your last-minute questions, give you the most up-to-date injury news, and prepare you for this crazy slate of games this weekend. That being said, alongside John Viveros and Bobby Digital Janis, I'm Kevin McCartney. Good luck in fantasy this weekend, unless you're playing me.